Hi, everyone. I don't think that we need to send our kids more into the garden. Although that has been the story that I've been hearing since I was growing up in the 80s with the Game Boy. Whom of you still remembers the Game Boy? It was amazing, right? This was a device that really fueled my passion for technology. And I think that if we want to get a grip on the future, that we need to look through three lenses. The first one is, what are the kids doing and where are they spending their time? The second one is, what are the developers building, both in hardware and software technology? And the third one is, where are we and the kids spending our money? And for that, I have a small favor to ask you. I want to ask you to just think for a few seconds where you have spent your first pocket money. If you're part of the baby boomer generation, there is a high chance that you've spent your first pocket money in a candy store on candy. If you're part of my generation, the millennials, there is a high chance that you spend your first money on games like Mario Bros. Or Tetris for the Game Boy or the Nintendo. Or maybe even on the Panini stickers, if you were into football. You might recognize some famous players here like Ronaldo, Baggio, Maldini, and Maradona, bringing back a lot of nostalgia. Now, if you look into the new generation, Generation Alpha, that is coming along, and if you look at their spending behavior, their first pocket money, you will see that in many cases, it's in games like Fortnite or Roblox. And I think this is just the beginning. If you want to get a grip on the deeper future, and we look 20 years ahead, we already see some first signs of new technologies on the horizon. The first one, obviously, AI. AI is on the top of the hype cycle. It's everywhere. If you open a magazine or a newspaper or you listen to television, it's AI, AI, AI. Or ai, 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 as the Italians would say. There is definitely an impact, and we're just starting out. This is Jensen Huang, the founder and CEO of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the company creating the chips that run the AI algorithms. And here you see him introducing the new Blackwell processor. The Blackwell processor has 208 billion transistors on the chip. And if you compare that to the first chip of Intel 50 years ago, it only had 2,300 transistors. So we've come a very long way. And this is also fueling new forms of virtual intelligence. Studies show that platforms like ChatGPT already sometimes get to levels of 150 in terms of IQ. Now, the average human being has an IQ of 100. 150 is close to genius level. And the projections are that this will go tenfold in the coming years. Can you imagine? And this has already shown very big impact in studies like science or fields like healthcare. For the first time in over 60 years, they discovered a new class of antibiotics by using AI. But it's not just in the field of science or healthcare, it's also in business. This is Sam Altman, the founder and CEO of OpenAI. And he has said that in the foreseeable future, we will see the first one-person billion-dollar company. So we will get to totally new levels of scale. And it's not just generative AI, it's also embodied AI with those smaller robots. We've seen those Boston Dynamics bots for a few times now. But now with the combination of AI, they can actually listen to commands and execute them. And it's also Tesla with the Optimus bot. By using computer vision combined with AI, it can already do very small household tasks. You see it here folding a t-shirt, and I have to admit this, in a much better way than I could do it, which is actually not super hard. So we will see more and more of these humanoids. And studies show that they will probably take away what is called the 3D jobs from us. the dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs, which should enable us to do much more impactful and meaningful work. So it's generative AI, it's embodied AI with the robots, and it's also the rise of the supercomputer. This is the Sycamore from Google. It's a supercomputer that can do calculations in a few seconds that other computers would take 45 years. So we are just starting out. And if we look then 20 years ahead, I think we will see some kind of perfect storm where these different technologies will collide. We will see more and more advanced artificial intelligence. We will see more and more of these humanoids and smaller robots. And we will have many more supercomputers in our society. Now the question is, if you look into the market, what emotions does that bring? And I think we're on some kind of roller coaster with mixed emotions. The nerds among us are super excited. But there are also people that are scared. Like, what will this mean for my job? What will this mean for society? And are we not going too fast? And then there are also people like the girl in the middle that just don't care and think this too shall pass. But the fundamental question that everybody has, whether you're excited, whether you're scared or indifferent, is what will this do to our human magic? How will we still make the difference? Now, the world is changing at an unseen pace, but there are also things that remain the same. And one of those things is that as human beings, we are constantly looking for this sense of belonging. We want to be part of a group, we want to be part of a family, we want to be part of a community. That's what we need, the sense of belonging. And it might be exactly on that track that we're derailing. The World Health Organization has declared that we're in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. Although technology and social media had the promise of connecting us like never before, people feel more disconnected. And interestingly enough, Gen Z is the most lonely generation so far. So the question is, how do we deal with this? If you look back in recent history, we were more part of communities. We had the people in the street, the people of our village. We had religion. People felt more connected and there were more social connections. So we were born into communities and we had to find who we were as individuals. And today it's the other way around. We are born individuals, we have freedom of expression, but we have to find who we are and we have to find the sense of belonging in those communities. This is Professor Waldinger from the Harvard University. And he's leading the 4th team in the longest study ever that has been done on finding our true sense of happiness. They have studied over 2,000 people worldwide for over 85 years. And they have found that the single thing that drives our happiness is social connection and our ability to social fitness. So it's making us happier, and that brings me to the question, what ultimately sets us apart from the machines? We have long thought that it was our knowledge, that we knew more than the computers. But I think you will probably all agree with me that this is not the case anymore. Computers have more data, more knowledge than we do. And then some people argue it's our creativity. But I would say today, if you see the evolution in AI, that I would disagree. I think for the average human being, that computers and machines can show more creativity than we are able to do. And then often the ultimate argument is, yeah, but Dado, it's about emotion. We have this unique ability to showcase emotions. And again, I tend to disagree. There was a research in the US where they had a group of people that was discussing their healthcare situation with a doctor. And then there was another group of people that was doing the same thing, but they were not talking to a doctor, but to an AI system, without them knowing. And then they compared both results, and they asked those people To what level do you feel empathy? And it showed that in the group of people that were speaking to the AI, that the people felt way more empathy than the people that were speaking to a real doctor. So it's not because we can show emotion that we always do so. Computers don't feel emotions, but they can show them to a very high extent. And so the question is, what remains? What ultimately can set us apart? And I think the only thing where we really can make a difference is building deep, meaningful human relationships. Now, if we believe that's the truth, if we believe that building those relationships is what ultimately sets us apart, the question is, are we actually giving it our all to be human? Are we doubling down enough? Are we doing the effort? And I think in many cases we don't. And for me, my true inspiration on this is my best friend Sam. He's like always there. Whenever in my life something goes sideways or we have something to celebrate with the family, he's always the first one to show up, sending a small message. And not just in those big moments, but also in what I would call the random acts of kindness. Like the other day, he was showing up at my door and he brought a gift. I thought, like, what is this? And he knows I'm an amateur boxer at a very low level. And I opened the gift and there is a boxer short with boxing gloves on the boxer shorts. And I thought, how? Now I see some of you wondering, I'm not wearing it today, so don't worry. But for me, it was a sign that Sam is always taking the effort to go the extra mile. And he said, yeah, I just saw this in the store and I thought, it made me think of you. And so the question is, are we giving it our all? And for me, Sam has won the game of being human. He's the best one at always going the extra mile. Now, another group of people that is really doubling down on building those connections are the people from Okinawa, Japan. Okinawa, Japan is one of the famous blue zones in the world. There are only 5 places like that where people tend to live longer than elsewhere. And the formula is always the same. There is some kind of diet, some kind of physical movement, and always, always social connection. And in Okinawa, Japan, they take this concept to the next level. They have something called the moais. And the moais are social support groups, kind of mini communities of 5 people that gather on a monthly basis to take care of each other and to discuss the difficulties of life. And I think we should do that much more often. We tend to think that we lost social connection because of the modern time, because we lost it of technology. But the truth of the matter is we have always been distracted. And I would even say, to my opening point of the garden, that young people today are trying to find those social connections in those virtual worlds. So to me, it's not one or the other. It's not a choice between technology and investing in our human side. We need to embrace the technology layer, and it will only continue to expand and bring new opportunities. But at the same time, I believe that we need to over-index on being human and trying to be the best human possible. And I would even say that if we find ways to connect both ends and to connect the dots, that we will ultimately find new ways to create magic. Now, talking about connecting the dots, this is Ray Kurzweil, the former futurist of Google. And he has predicted that by 2045, we will enter the point of singularity, which is the point where man and machine really converge. And we already see the first signs of that. You might have heard about the company Neuralink, which is one of those companies that is trying to implant chips into our bodies to enable us to do more. Now, they just did an experiment a few weeks ago with a paralyzed patient that loved to play chess. But because he's disabled, he cannot use his hands anymore. And so they implanted this chip in his brain that allows him to look at the screen and to use his mind to move the pieces on the board, which is extremely fascinating. And it's a sign that technology will enable us to do so much more in the future. So therefore, my friends, I want to bring a toast to technology, which I believe we need to embrace, because it will propel us into so many new opportunities. But I also want to bring out a toast to us, humans. Let's try to be more like Sam, because ultimately, it's together that we're going to build the future. Thank you very much. Thank you.